Hey, what's going on, AP government people? We have video number 16. This one is on interest groups and the range of interests represented by these groups. All right, let's start off talking about interest groups. What the heck are they? They're a group that seeks to influence public policy. A very famous interest group is the NRA, the National Rifle Association, with headquarters located right in Virginia, not too far from Washington, D.C. If there is a public policy, chances are there are interest groups for that public policy. So there are many different ones. There are four main types of interest groups. However, one is economic, two is environmental, three is equality, and four is consumer. Most interest groups can fall within these categories. So how do these interest groups affect policy? Well, they do so through lobbying, which we'll talk more about in the next video, and PACs, or political action committees, which we'll talk about in a few videos, that help raise money for candidates. And lobbyists are people who lobby or try to persuade members of Congress to propose and pass legislation. And if you go to Washington, D.C., there is a very famous street, K Street, in which most of these lobbyists are located. A lot of these special interest groups are located on K Street. Okay, let's talk about the theories of interest group. You've seen these theories before, just not applied to interest groups. You remember pluralism. Pluralists believe that many groups are beneficial because no one group can dominate. Elitism takes a more skeptical view, and they argue that most interest groups are not important and that most power resides with a few groups, particularly the wealthy, who are very, very powerful. And hyper-pluralists argue that interest groups hold too much power, and therefore government tries to please all the groups, and this leads to problems. Okay, let's talk about economic interest groups. We'll talk about labor interests, and they are the second largest interest group behind the AARP, American Association for Retired People. Now, here's the AFL-CIO, the largest labor union. They also have headquarters located not far from Washington, D.C. Now, unions would favor the union shop, and this requires employees to join a union once they are hired. So this would boost union membership. On the other end, businesses favor right-to-work laws, and more states are becoming right-to-work states. What these laws do is it does not require union membership in order to work. So you could work a traditional union job without being a union member. In the past, unions have played a role in the passage of laws. For example, after the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in New York City in 1911, it was unions that really helped persuade many new safety laws. And since the 1950s, union membership has declined, and in part due to outsourcing of many jobs to other countries, and many workers do not feel that unions are beneficial for them. So let's jump on over to business interests. The number of political action committees, or PACs, for businesses has grown significantly in recent years. Again, we'll talk more about this in a few videos, but political action committees raise money for candidates and political parties for elections. Business interests do sometimes conflict with each other. For example, railroad interests want fewer highways and more railroads, whereas trucking interests want more highways and fewer railroads because they compete with each other economically. And more international trade is good for some businesses, but it hurts others. So businesses are not united as a whole, but rather each business kind of has different objectives and different interests that they want to see become law. Okay, let's go over to environmental interest groups. Earth Day was first celebrated on April 22nd, 1970, and here is the flag of Earth Day. And this really helped inspire many environmental interest groups. These groups hope to see public policies that control pollution or limit and reverse global warming. Now, here is a graph from NASA, and it's a little tough to see, but you can see that over the years, the temperature has been increasing on this planet, according to NASA. Now, many environmental interest groups also oppose oil drilling and the building of nuclear plants. And since 1977, there have been no new nuclear power plants approved. So they have been successful in that area. Let's go over to equality interest groups. Two that you should be familiar with. We have the NAACP, or the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and NOWR, the National Organization for Women. The NAACP was founded by W.E.B. Du Bois and others, and here in the center is W.E.B. Du Bois. It's really kind of emerged out of the Niagara movement, which got together in Niagara Falls, Canada, and eventually helped morph into the NAACP. And you know the NAACP from the Supreme Court case Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. The NAACP represented the Brown family and others that were plaintiffs by this gentleman, Thurgood Marshall, who eventually became the first African-American Supreme Court justice. And that case reversed segregation in schools and was a huge civil rights milestone. The National Organization for Women was founded in the mid-20th century, and the first president was Betty Friedan. You know her from writing The Feminine Mystique, and they seek to end discrimination against women. They advocated the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment in 1972, which ultimately did not get ratified to the U.S. Constitution, but their goal of seeking to end discrimination against women has continued. Now let's finish up with consumer interest groups. Consumer interest groups can help everyone benefit, not just the members of that group. So what do I mean? Well, consumer safety benefits everyone in America, not just members of that particular group. The Consumer Product Safety Commission was established by the government in 1973, and this was created to regulate consumer products, and it could also ban products. And Ralph Nader is a very famous consumer advocate. He wrote Unsafe at Any Speed, which exposed the dangers of cars manufactured by General Motors. And this really helped to bring attention to the dangers of some automobiles and led to many reforms in the automobile industry. Okay, so how do interest groups influence policy? There's a couple ways. They lobby federal agencies and Congress. They file lawsuits, and again, think of Brown versus the Board of Education. They can testify before Congress on issues, and they also use issue advocacy ads to spread their message. So I would definitely be familiar with these 4 ways. Now, for test tips for multiple choice, definitely know the theories of interest groups and ways interest groups influence policy. Write them down again if you need to. And the achievements by the NAACP and now as well. For free response questions, we saw in 2012 techniques that were used by interest groups to influence elections. So be able to describe that. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to seeing you back here for video number 17 on iron triangles. Very important topic that you should be familiar with. Thank you for watching, and best of luck on all your exams, especially the one in May. Have a good day.